like for a very long time. But ever since the oil boom started, Cotulla, it's now on the map and other things. So I want to thank Mr. Hurd for taking the time. He has a very, very busy schedule, and I hope that wherever he goes, that he may be able to help our small communities on some of our hard tasks that we have. Hopefully you can help us out. And I want to also thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedule as well and coming to stop by to meet Mr. Hurd. So again, thank you and welcome, Mr. Hurd. Thank you.
So I mentioned Cotulla probably 50 times a day, and partly because this is the southeast corner of the district, and to go from here to the northwest corner, which is San Elizario, takes 10.5 hours driving, 80 miles an hour, right? Which is the speed limit in most of the district. Right? But I've learned recently, Sheriff, it's not the speed limit in all of Texas. It's an honor to represent this great district. So, it's a quick background on me and an overview of things going on in Congress, and then I'd love to hear some of y'all's questions. So I was born and raised in San Antonio. I grew up in Leon Valley, where my folks still live today. And I went to Texas A&M University, got a degree, Giga Maggie's. I got a degree in computer science. I had the honor of serving as student body president my last year in school during the bonfire collapse. And I'm one of the few Aggies that doesn't refer to University of Texas as TU. And part of that is because what the University of Texas did in response to that tragedy was unbelievable. When I graduated from A&M, I started in the CIA at 22. So I was the guy in the back alleys at 4 o'clock in the morning collecting intelligence on threats to our homeland. It was a fantastic job. I spent 2 years in what I used to call, 2 years in DC at what I used to call the super secret CIA training facility called the Farm, but now it's on Google Maps. I did 2 years in India, 2 years in Pakistan, 2 years in New York doing interagency work, and then 1.5 years in Afghanistan where I manage all of our undercover operations. And one of the things I also had to do in addition to collecting intelligence was brief members of Congress. And I was pretty shocked by the caliber of our elected officials. And so my mama said, either part of the problem, part of the solution, and I decided to run for Congress. And so I moved from Kabul, Afghanistan to Helotes, Texas, and ran for Congress, right? Growing up in Leon Valley, there's 2 places I never thought I'd live, Afghanistan and Helotes. And I lost that first election. But I'm thankful for that because it was an opportunity for me to get involved in the private sector more than I already had. And I was a partner in a consulting firm, and I helped start a cybersecurity business from scratch. And it was a great experience to learn, starting flat-footed to build a company. And when you start a company, you shouldn't have to be worrying about our complicated tax code. You should be worrying about how do you build a better widget, how do you provide a better service, how do you make sure you hire, quality people, right? And making sure that we keep an overly burdensome regulatory environment out of, preventing us from growing business and helping small business. It's a great perspective. And so the opportunity came to run again. I took it, and this time we won. So I've been in office 19 months. I chair a subcommittee on information technology, and then I also am on the Homeland Security Committee. This district, Texas 23, has 820 miles of the border, 2 time zones, right? It's a big district. Homeland security is an important issue within this district, and the person that represents this district should be leading on these issues. And so when I ran for office, one of the reasons I'm out here is because when I ran for office, I ran for office for 2 reasons. Be a leader on national security and the gold standard when it comes to constituent relations. I take my title representative seriously. I don't represent just the big towns. I represent small towns too. I don't represent just people that voted for me. I represent everyone, right? And I take that very seriously. And we wouldn't be able to do this if it wasn't for having a great team. And I want to introduce some of them. Stony Burke, not the famous cowboy, but my chief of staff. Stoney's an Aggie. I've known him since he was 14 years old. Brings a wealth of experience not only from agriculture and energy to helping the 23rd. Daniel Meza, another Aggie. He's spent 12 years with Senator Cornyn. He's been with us. His experience has helped us get up and running quickly because he knew what he was doing. He had the experience. He's been a great resource for the 23rd District of Texas. Tyler Lowe, our newest addition. He's Daniel's deputy, and he was the counsel for the Homeland Security Committee. So he did that for a year and a half, did his law school in San Antonio. It's great to have him on the team. Jenny Tavares, right there, another Longhorn. We let a few slip in. Yeah, I know. We let a few slip in. Even worse, I let a couple of TCU Horned Frogs in as well too. I know. But Jenny's from Fort Stockton. Did some school at Sul Ross. Graduated from UT Austin. She crisscrosses this district often and is a great advocate for these communities. Henry Hubera is one of our caseworkers. Fighting the bureaucracy is what he does best. Social Security issues, Medicare issues, he deals with a lot of that. And then John Arnold in the back, again, another Longhorn. Yeah, exactly. My stunt double, and he also spent 9.5 years in the Army. And his experience in going through the process, pretty significant process going through the VA. Understands the VA, understands what the problems are. He's one of the people that have been really active in helping us solve some of the issues for our veterans. One of the things I'm proud of is last year alone, we solved about 242 veterans cases, helping them fight the bureaucracy. The reality, and we're doing almost as many this year as well. The reality is this, even though Congress has funded the VA at the highest level the VA's ever been funded, we still have some problems in making sure our veterans are getting the resources that they deserve. And we're out here, we always learn stories about problems. And guess what? If one person's having the problem, then thousands of people are having that problem. And if we can fix the problem for that one individual, we can figure out how to fix it on the macro level. One area we've been working a lot with is the Choice program, the Choice Card. If you're a veteran, you need to know about it. If you know veterans, I need you to tell them about it. This is a program that if your appointment at the VA is more than 30 days, you can go on the local economy and go see a doctor. If you're more than 40 miles away from a VA clinic, you can use this program to go on the local economy. It's a new program. So the rollout wasn't the greatest, to be frank. Getting some of the local healthcare providers to participate was hard because the VA wasn't paying their bill on time. Tri-West, which is an entity that works with the VA, has been involved. They went from about 240 people to about 3,000 people. So it's improving. It's still not perfect, but it's little things. Like out in West Texas, you have veterans that take 3 or 4 hours to drive to a VA clinic just to get their blood drawn. You can draw blood, in any clinic. And working with some of those local clinics to do things like some of those basic procedures, to do that locally, and then so that some of our veterans that don't have transportation, don't have to be sitting in the lobby of Audie Murphy or something like that for all day long. We have a pilot program going on in Uvalde right now. It seems to be working, and hopefully we get the VA to export that throughout the state and the district. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I served alongside our men and women in the military. I know the sacrifices they made. I know the sacrifices their families have made, and we need to make sure that we're honoring the commitment we made to them when they gave the commitment to potentially giving their lives for us. And so this is an area we spent a lot of time on, and it's great having John be part of that. Another area we spent a lot of time on, of course, is national security. All right. Some of the things that's frustrating about Washington, D.C. is that if some of the senior folks in government, if I did what some of the senior folks in government did, I'd be in jail. If I had a server in my basement that was not protected, and I had classified top secret special compartment information, TSSCI, I'd be in jail right now, right? And to be able to use my background and experience to highlight those issues, because the reality is this: we can't have our senior leaders in our national security apparatus to create a culture where protecting our secrets is not supported, right? You know, I served alongside men and women that were collecting these information. Our men and women that are in the military are fighting on our behalf to protect these secrets, and then we have senior leaders in the government not protecting it. That's outrageous, right? And so this is something where Congress's oversight role is important, right? You know, its oversight role is important in areas like cybersecurity. So the Social Security Administration has information on every American. Our seniors are targeted by criminal organizations to perpetuate fraud. We had the Chief Information Security Officer of the Social Security Administration in front of my committee. And they had 9 months before this hearing, had a test done on their system. And they had thousands of problems. So one of my first questions was, how many problems did y'all have? I don't know, was the response. Like, okay, how many critical vulnerabilities did you have? That's something that's so bad that needs to be fixed immediately. I don't know the answer, Congressman. My next question was, what are you doing to solve these problems? Chief Information Security Officer for the Social Security Administration said many different things. And for those that are not technical, many different things is not a technical answer. Right? So it's our responsibility, it's Congress' responsibility to shine a light on these things and make sure they're doing things to protect our information. Many of y'all probably heard about the OPM hack. Office of Personnel Management. 23.5 million records were stolen. And these were records of individuals that went through a security clearance for the federal government. My information was in there. My chief of staff's information was in there. And you know, if one of y'all's businesses would have done this, you would have been fined millions of dollars. You would have probably seen something in the inside of a jail cell. The federal government, OPM, didn't even say my bad. Right? That's the kind of stuff that's outrageous. Now, we got the head of OPM to step down. You know, it was because of oversight. It was because of oversight, and so our committee specifically is working on making sure they're implementing this common, very basic things to protect our digital infrastructure. So when Congress drags people in front of a hearing, things usually happen, but you have to stay persistent, right? You have to know the right questions in order to ask, right?
As you probably well know, that's just one example.
Absolutely.
So much that's going on and it's wrong. And some people, and a lot of folks up there, should be in jail.
No.
If we did the same thing down here at this level, we would be in jail.
No, look, you're absolutely right. And honestly, and that's why Congress's oversight role is so important. Another example. My first hearing, we had the head of GAO, the Government Accountability Office. They do a report every year called the High Risk Report. These are projects of over $1 billion that there's a cost or a time overrun. First problem, why is $1 billion a cutoff? That seems pretty high. Right, this is y'all's money. This is y'all's taxpayers' money. So since I'm the junior guy on the committee, I got to ask questions second to last. And my first question to the head of GAO was, sir, how long have you been part of GAO? He said 40 years, 40. It's a long time. I said, in your 40-year history with the GAO, have you ever heard of anybody in the federal government being fired for a cost overrun or a time overrun? He strokes his beard like 13, 14, 15 seconds. And he says, Congressman, I can't recall, but I'm sure somebody was put in hot water. Hot water, right? So I asked some further questions and I'm leaving. And many of my colleagues from both sides of the political aisle came up to me and patted me on the back. Hurd, great questions, great questions. And I'm like, why am I the first dude to ever ask if somebody got fired for a cost overrun or a time overrun? Part of the problem is we don't have enough people in Congress that understand these issues. We don't have enough people in Congress that have worked in business, that have created jobs, that have had to do these things, that have had to operate within time constraints, within budget constraints, right? And so that's part of the solution. And again, sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that's part of Congress's role in oversight. And here's the other reality. Washington is indeed a circus. But you can't believe everything you see on television and read in the newspaper. Some things have actually gotten done. Big one for this community, lifting the ban on exporting crude. Nobody thought that was going to happen. My first couple of weeks in office, I would bring that up and people were like, shh, don't talk about that. That's a sensitive topic. We got it done. And you know, another person that was influential in that was Henry Cuellar from Laredo. Henry Cuellar also represents parts of San Antonio. One of the things we did before that ban was lifted was working with the Department of Commerce to allow swaps of heavy and light crude between the U.S. and Mexico. 3 months later, the ban was lifted. Now, we all know the impact that's going to have. It's not going to have an immediate impact. But guess what? When we're selling energy to Eastern Europe, guess who's not? The Russians. You want to put Vladimir Putin in a box? Sell energy to Eastern Europe. The Russians' economy is more tied to the price of a barrel of oil than ours. And by the way, we're keeping kids, our men and our women employed. The Dairy Queen in Big Lake, Texas. When we did our first D2DQ a year ago, the kids were making $21 an hour. And they were getting a $1,500 signing bonus. Wow. Yeah. Now listen, and honestly, the soft serve is really good, okay? And the breakfast they serve in Big Lake Dairy Queen is really good. But it was the impact the energy sector was having on the rest of the economy, right? It was lifting all ships. So this is an important thing. And the person that sits in District 23, who represents about a third of the Eagle Ford, half the Permian Basin, needs to understand these issues. We need to understand the issues that sending natural gas to Mexico is a good thing for Mexico, it's a good thing for us, right? And so we did that, we lifted that ban on exporting crude. This Congress, how many of y'all run your own business? A few of y'all. Section 179 of the tax code, made permanent. This allows people to get tax rebate or tax incentives for investing in their company and their employees. That's a big deal, right? It's a big deal. Every year, where's the number going to be? Are we going to have it? Is it not? It created uncertainty. People weren't investing in their company. And this is going to be a huge benefit for small businesses. And most of the businesses in Texas are small businesses. These are the people that are creating jobs. These are the people that are putting people to work. We passed that this Congress. If you have children, or grandchildren, or great-grandchildren, you should know about the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. This was a repeal of No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind was one of those issues that both Republicans and Democrats agreed needed to be changed. And we changed it this year. There's no longer a one-size-fits-all solution to educating our kids. It's a big deal. Now, my fear is we're in this implementation phase. So I'm afraid that the states are going to have a one-size-fits-all solution in the state. That wasn't the intention of this legislation. The intention was to say, hey, Cotulla wants to do something one way, they can. And it's probably going to be different than what you need to do in Los Angeles, California. But you know who knows best? Y'all do, all right? Your parents, the parents know, principals know, your superintendent knows. You know, y'all know the best way to educate our kids and prepare them for jobs that don't exist right now. That's the reality. We have to prepare our kids for jobs that we don't know about right now. That's hard to do. the technological change we're going to see in the next 20 years is going to make the last 20 years look insignificant. And we have to be ready. All right? And an example I used, last year in Texas, there were 42,000 computing jobs that went unfilled. The average pay for those jobs, $89,000. That's more than twice the average pay in Texas. Texas only produced 2,100 computer scientists. And even worse than that, only 5,000 high school kids took the AP Computer Science course. That's the course you take it, you get college credit for. Of those 5,000 kids, only 24% were women and girls. Less than 900 were Latinos or Latinas, and only 120 were African American. That's a problem. Right? But now communities have the tools, because of ESSA, to change that. Now I was in Del Rio last week, and my heart was warm because we were at a health clinic, and I talked to 50 girls from 7th grade to 2nd grade. And I asked each one of them, what's your favorite subject? All but 3 said math or science. It's like, that's awesome. All right? We got to make sure we keep that interest in these young girls, all right? Because it's really a national security issue if we're not educating our kids in the future. Right? These are big things that are happening. Right? And again, we got a long way to go to fix all of our problems. Right? And you know, another bill, I don't think I mentioned this, SGR fix. None of y'all know what that is. Because we should have named it the Increasing Seniors Access to Good Doctors while Shaving $5 trillion off the national debt over 15 years. Because that's actually what it did. First time we had ever reformed Medicare. Right? And it's going to allow seniors to have more access to good doctors. Nobody's talking about that. Bipartisan legislation got signed into law. This Congress. Big deal. Medicare Advantage. My dad is 83, my mom's 72. My dad has diabetes, all kinds of problems, neuropathy in his feet. He's in some of the best health he's ever been. Had a stroke because of programs like Medicare Advantage. We got to make sure these things continue to exist for our seniors and near seniors. So and guess what? We've put more money into it and made sure that Medicare Advantage program is going to continue. All that stuff happened over the last 19 months. Good things are going on. I've gone on too long. I'm going to take some questions. And make sure you work up an appetite to buy some Blizzards and Belt Busters. We're hitting 24, is that right, Daniel? We're hitting 23. We're hitting 23 Dairy Queens this week. We're going to be in 25 towns in 5 days, 6 days, 5 days, 6 days. 25 towns in 6 days, 23 Dairy Queens. Thank God there's a Blizzard Mini, because if I ate the medium, I'd have a hard time getting in my jeans. But can y'all help me thank Dairy Queen for letting us do this here today and all over? Thank y'all. Thank y'all. And I'm gonna stop there and take some questions. Yes, sir.
Something that really is in my craw is nobody this whole time seems to have mentioned that Hillary, as Secretary of State, every week she got at least one top secret special information from the President's National Security Council. Every week, the highest classification there is. And nobody brings up all of those. When I was in Headquarters Security Service, our protocol was if you were going to go to the dentist for surgery or the regular hospital for surgery, there had to be a security policeman there to make sure we didn't talk about anything while we were under anesthetic. And
Well, I'd have to say, people are talking about it. Because not only did she get a weekly brief, she had access, if she wanted it, to the presidential daily brief as Secretary of State. And that's a brief by the DNI and the CIA, Director of National Intelligence and CIA, about some of the most important national security issues of the day. And what's also happening is that, so to think that the excuse the other side is using is she didn't know the difference between unclassified and classified information.
1438.
This is someone who went to a top undergraduate school, Yale Law School, had a strong legal practice in Arkansas, First Lady, which is like being the CEO of a company, Senator, Secretary of State, and you don't know the difference between unclassified and classified, all right? And the real issue is the Espionage Act, right, has a section 798, which says gross negligence of handling classified information is punishable by time in jail. It does not say intent, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've learned a lot about intent since this. The law does not say intent explicitly, but the Department of Justice and the FBI puts a higher standard, even though it's not written in the law. So we're trying to tweak that in order to make sure senior intelligence service, senior executive service, and cabinet level officials, that if there is gross negligence, they can be prosecuted under the law. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal because of what does this say to our men and women that are in the national security apparatus? What does this say to the folks who are our foreign partners that are helping us and saying, hey, does everybody know my name and my information, right? Because it's making us less fair. And so this is trust me, this is a big deal in highlighting that. Why were there classification markings in 3 of those emails? Was it cut and pasted into from a? Did someone have a? The way this works, you have a classified computer and you have an unclassified computer. Did somebody put a thumb drive in the classified computer, take it, put it in the unclassified computer, and cut and paste? Or was it someone that, okay, I remember reading this, I'm on my laptop at home, and I'm going to type it up. Oh, and this part's sensitive, so I need to put classification markings on it. But you're on your laptop at your home, right? So I'm with you, sir. And again, having spent most of my adult life protecting secrets, I'm offended by this, and we're going to continue to shine a light on this issue. And if you haven't seen my conversation with the director of the FBI, those are the kinds of things that we're going to continue to do. But thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
What are we going to do with Director Comey to make him accountable for letting her just skim by without any punishment?
Yeah, the director of the FBI is appointed for 10 years. Part of that is to make it less political. Right? I will say this, in Washington, D.C., both sides of the aisle, he has a very good reputation. All right? Now, the good director and I have been on the opposite sides of a lot of issues, especially a privacy issue, encryption. All right? I believe that encryption is good for our protection and it's good for our economy. And we should be strengthening encryption, not weakening it. All right? Plain and simple. And some of the calls for back doors to encryption, my friend here knows you can't do it. That's why you're laughing. If you create a back door for the good guys, then the bad guys are going to get access to it. All right? So we need to do everything we can to strengthening that. And again, these are complicated issues. We need people that understand it, people that can talk about it, and need people that can ensure that, when someone tries to give an alternative viewpoint, there's someone there to question back. So the answer to your question, I wish I had a magic wand to say we can sort this out tomorrow. It's diligence, it's oversight, it's persistence to bring to bear true insight on these particular problems. And we're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue. That's why y'all sent me out to watch it. Yes, sir. And then you're next, man.
What do you think of Donald Trump as president?
What about?
What do you think about Donald Trump?
Well, I have not endorsed Donald Trump, and I believe until there's a real national security plan coming out of there, he can show that he truly respects women and minorities. I'm going to withhold that endorsement. One of the big issues that he talks about is building a wall from sea to shining sea. That's the least effective and most expensive way to do border security, right? What you need, and a wall is a tool in some places, where there's urban to urban contact, it's important, right? But there's a mix of technology and tools that we should be looking at when it comes to border security. We should also be intelligence driven. There are 19 criminal organizations operating in Mexico. We should be focused on that. In a place like San Diego, you have Coast Guard, Border Patrol, ICE, and Homeland Security Investigation. You have 4 senior guys, right? There's no boss. And so you don't have continuing operations. So you don't always have in some of these sectors the same problem set that CBP is focused on is the same problem set ICE is focused on. And also, by the way, if we're able to enforce the law, we solve a lot of these problems. And honestly, when you talk about the border, you have to talk about international trade. Mexico is our #1 trading partner for Texas. Right? We build things together, and that's something that we have to remember as well. Yes, ma'am.
Isn't there a training or courses in OHA on Secretary of State positions when they go in there?
So the question is, was there training or that for someone like going in before you go into Secretary of State? There's plenty of people that are willing to brief you and talk to you before you go in there, and I am shocked that there was not someone that said, "Hey, boss, probably shouldn't do that." But there is going to be a further investigation on this specific topic. Yes, sir.
Understanding that the opioid epidemic is causing a lot of death in the country, and this area is a drug corridor and effective like that. But also in place to address opioid treatment, opioid addiction.
Sure. So again, thanks for the question, because the House just passed significant opioid legislation a number of weeks ago, and we can get you the details on that and outline how that affects the community. But the number of increasing access to new ways of dealing with addiction is there are some folks in San Antonio that are on the cutting edge of dealing with opioid addiction, and we can put you in touch with those folks and figure out how we can get them down here in this community. So this is a huge issue across the United States, and this is one of those things to give local communities the tools and the access to the kind of care to deal with it, right? And so it was pretty major legislation, and we'll make sure you get those details on that piece that was passed. Look, mental health issues, another thing that was passed this year. And it's often talked about, but a lot of resources aren't being put toward it. If this Congress passed the most significant mental health legislation in the last 2 decades. We also dealt with the issue of PTSD. There are 22 veterans a day committing suicide that have PTSD. We need to make sure that they're able, when they're in through the VA or through their local doctors, are getting access to the right care to deal with that. And there's no single pill that you can take to prevent PTSD. This is a huge problem. Again, that's one of the first things we did when we were in Congress. And I think all these things are interrelated. So we'd love to get more information. Yes, ma'am. Last one. Make it a good one.
Okay. I live out here. I'm off of 35 and by the bridge, and I'm having people come by, I'm sure from South America, and this very recently, I had a woman visiting, and she said, "There's a man walking in the back of your garage." So I immediately called the Border Patrol, and then about 10 days later, my dog and I were out in the yard, and somebody came by. They had a backpack, they had a ball of something like this that they were swinging, and they paid no attention to me and my dog. like, you know, I own this place. Is there anything that we're doing about that?
Well, the first step is we got to enforce our laws, right, on the federal level, and that's not always happening, right? And so if there are no, and the sheriff can tell you this, if there's no consequences to negative behavior,
Well,
that negative behavior is going to continue, right?
okay, I had a window broke in my house. I had a rock on the other side of the house. I had a rock on top of my house. There's not many ways that a rock can get on your house.
Absolutely, so that's something going on.
Yeah.
But this is a symptom of a much larger problem about our strategies on how we're dealing with border security, on how we're enforcing our existing laws, how we're making sure that we're solving and targeting folks before they get here. There are, like I said earlier, there's 19 criminal organizations, and part of that are human smuggling kingpins. These are folks that are not hiding in caves, right? You know, they live in pretty big mansions, right? And being able to have intelligence-led targeting of those kinds of folks is what we need to do to stop them before they actually get here. And the Department of Homeland Security, the rank and file folks, are good men and women that are working hard in harm's way every day. We got to let them adjust their tactics, techniques, and procedures as they see fit, and not follow a one-size-fits-all solution back, being dictated from Washington, D.C. And so this is something that, this is not the first time I've heard something like this. These are, as I sit with these folks in the Department of Homeland Security, we address this because, again, I represent 820 miles of the border, more border than anybody else, and this is a problem we have to solve at the source.
Okay, I heard on TV that the Border Patrol is no longer to arrest what I used to call them wetbacks, but they're no longer wetbacks. That if they're in a place, like we were having a parade in town, they could not go there and arrest them. Like they came here for Dairy Queen, they could not arrest them.
Well, I'll have to look into that. I don't think that is. Yeah, I don't think that is. I don't think that is necessarily the case. But we can find that out. So yeah. So this is the 29 counties I represent are. It's a unique part of Texas. It's a beautiful part of Texas. And it's an honor to represent my hometown, but also these 29 counties. One of the things I learned very quickly, if you, when you represent a 50-50 district, no matter what you do, there's some people upset with you. That's okay, I'm tough, I can handle it. I'm worried that my mother's seeing some of the nasty ads like we run against me. She's not going to respond as positively or as diplomatically as I would. But what's interesting is, and I've been critical of this organization I'm now a member of, and early on in my time in Congress, I was supposed to give a tour of the Capitol, and I had never given a tour of the Capitol, so I thought this would be a pretty crummy tour if I don't know what to show people. So I called the Capitol Visitor Center and said, hey, can you send someone to give me a tour? It's an hour, high points. And they sent a young woman over, 67 years old. She had been giving tours for 17 years. And 1 hour turned into 2 hours, turned into 3.5 hours. And at the end, she had me standing tall, and my chest was out. She had taught me I was one of 20,000 people at certain college. That's basically a freshman class at Texas A&M University of Texas. Right? She had showed that I was connected to people like Sam Houston and Abraham Lincoln. She also taught me that I was part of an organization for 240 years has been exporting democracy all around the globe. Now, Congress has a ways to go to repair our trust with the American people, but just know this. There's a handful of us that are working hard up in Washington, D.C. to continue to deserve y'all's support and y'all's respect. So it's an honor, and thank you to giving me the honor of representing y'all up in Washington, D.C. So God bless y'all, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you.
Get some blizzards. Get some blizzards.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.